mission to raise consciousness, transform lives, and heal the planet, one person at a time beginning with me, is that we invite people to raise consciousness, transform lives, and heal the planet. So I'm delighted today that we have with us Gregg Braden, who is a 5-time New York Times best-selling author. He's a scientist. He is an internationally renowned as a pioneer bridging modern science and human potential. From 1979 to 1990, Gregg worked as a problem solver during times of crisis for Fortune 500 companies, and he continues problem solving today as he merges modern science and the wisdom of our past to reveal real-world solutions to the issues that challenge our lives. His research has led to 15 film credits and 12 award-winning books now published in over 40 languages. Gregg is a member of visionary organizations and think tanks, including the American Association for the Advancement of Science, the Global Coherence Initiative, that's those hard folks, right? And Evolutionary Leadership Organization. He has presented his discoveries in over 30 countries on 6 continents and has been invited to speak to the United Nations, Fortune 500 companies, and the U.S. military. In 2019, Gregg received the prestigious Walden Award for New Thought, the Illuminata Award for Conscious Visionaries, and is listed on the United Kingdom's Watkins Journal among the top 100 of the world's most spiritually influential living people for the 6th consecutive year.
Living, that's the key.
Living. Hey, last week I became a living treasure at Urban Center. Okay, so I don't know how many of you have heard of the Templeton Award. The Templeton Award was established by Sir John Templeton, who was a financial magnate that many of you may have heard of the Templeton Foundation. And Sir John was disappointed that the Nobel Prize did not include an award for advancement in religion and spirituality. And Sir John is incredible when he was still in his body, and his foundation today is an incredible supporter of Unity, our Unity Worldwide Ministries. And so I always felt that Gregg should win one of those awards. And so he is a 2020 nominee for the prestigious Templeton Award, and that award is equivalent to a Nobel Prize. And it's established to honor outstanding living individuals who have devoted their talents to expanding our vision of human purpose and ultimate reality. So that's what the bio says about Gregg. But I just want to say personally, Gregg's mother used to be a member of our congregation. She was our first gardener here in our building. And I just have always been so impressed with Gregg's love and devotion to his mother. And he mentioned to me this morning and said I could share it with you that devotion is no small thing. Because when he was in the womb, his father wanted his mother to have an abortion. And his mother didn't. His mother fought for his life. And so even today, while she's, between the worlds, he is so devoted to her. And we are so grateful to her for the legacy that she has left us all. And even though she hasn't left yet, she's still around. And so please help me welcome that legacy, Gregg Braden.
Yeah. Thank you, Brendan, so very much. We didn't know we were going to have that conversation this morning. And I know some of you are in the same place I am. You have parents that are still in this world that don't know you any longer. My mom doesn't know me any longer. So she fought for my life when I was in her womb, and I get to advocate for hers in the experience, the graceful experience that she's experiencing now. So thank you. And her gardens in the spring, you can see her gardens. They're still out by the sign.
Yeah, and the side of the building.
Yeah, it's right along the side of the building.
Right.
Yeah. So Mom lives on. Living people, that's it. Good morning. Good morning. Well, I want to welcome everyone to Unity Santa Fe. Well, let me ask, how many are from beyond the Santa Fe area today? Anybody from, wow, thank you, coming from beyond Santa Fe. If you're in Santa Fe, you're my neighbors. However, I don't get to see you very often because I'm spending a lot more time out of the country than I am in the country right now. So it was really an honor and a pleasure to get up this morning and drive down a really muddy road in the four-wheel drive Chevy Tahoe to get down to 599 so I could come up and be with you today. How many have never had the opportunity, have never been with me before in a live event? Never? Okay, good. So I was thinking about you this morning in the shower. You were with me in the shower this morning. It was a very crowded shower that I had. My wife kept saying, "What's going on in the shower?" And I said, "I've got company." Because I ran from the shower with a towel to my laptop computer to modify the program, thinking that maybe some of you had not been with me. So I picked up your vibe this morning, and what I'd like to do, you know, I'm just going to begin by saying I'm a scientist, and I think science is good. I believe in the scientific method. Science is a relatively new way of thinking about us and our relationship to the world. It's only 300 years old. And science is designed to be constantly updated when new information is revealed. And the problem we're having right now is that we collectively have asked science to answer big questions in life. We've asked science to tell us, who are we? Where do we come from? And how have we come to be as we are? And science is giving us the answers, and there are a lot of scientists that don't like the answers because they're claiming to a static model. They're clinging to an idea that was introduced about 150 years ago. So I want you to know that there is a battle. There's a battle playing out. The best way, it's been said, the best way to hide something is to keep it in plain sight. And the battle that's playing out is playing out in plain sight with you and me every day. There's a battle for our thoughts, I think you know that. A battle for the way that we think about ourselves, our relationship to the world, our own potential. What are we capable of? Playing out in the media, propaganda in the media. Science has been largely hijacked. It's been hijacked by politics, by religion, by corporations and special interests. And a lot of the scientific data is now cherry-picked to support information, disinformation that simply is not true. So the battle goes even deeper than that, though. There's a battle for our story. American author Scott Turow said this so beautifully. He says, who are we? Who are we with the story we tell ourselves, about ourselves, and believe? Now think about that. Our story is important. It plays a powerful role in our lives. We all have a story. Some of your story you may be aware of, some you may not be aware of, because some of your story is conscious, the way you consciously think about yourself. A lot of your story may be subconscious. You picked up cues and ways of thinking about yourself and other people from the time you were in your mother's womb until you were about 6 years old. You were a sponge absorbing your environment. And if you were fortunate enough to be born in a really healthy environment, you got really good cues. In my experience, I know very few people that were blessed to have that kind of environment. So we learn about our beliefs through our relationships. The most intimate relationships that we have in the world light up for us the beliefs that serve us and sometimes the ones that do not. And we spend our lives trying to figure that out and heal those beliefs. So who are we? But the story we tell ourselves about ourselves. Not just the story, but the ones we believe. So there's a battle that goes beyond your thoughts. There's a battle for your story. You are being told who you are, where you come from, what your limits are, what your potential is, what your capabilities are, and a lot of it is based on false science and obsolete information. The real science, peer-reviewed science, is out there. So I am a scientist. I'm a degree geologist with a strong background in the life sciences, molecular biology and invertebrate paleontology and physics and math and computer science. It all works together to help me stay current with the new discoveries that they're published. They're just published in these really obscure little journals that very few people read, and they're very hard to read. So that is a big part of the battle for our story. But it goes even deeper than that, because there's a battle for our very humanness as technology is now infringing upon the biology of your body. And I want to tell you, this is happening so quickly, mainstream media is not even talking about it. Chips are being designed and are actually being manufactured now to be planted into the human brain that link the brain directly with the hard drive of your computer through a Bluetooth technology. Now, I'm not going to say it's right, wrong, good, or bad. I mean, I personally think it's a very slippery slope. I'm not going to say it's right, wrong, good, or bad. What I'm going to say is this. The science shows us that when we replace the gift that we were given in this body, you are such an advanced, such a sophisticated, technologically advanced being. And you're not told that. You're told just the opposite. You're told about how we are these broken beings that need all of this external help. And what I'm going to show you today, I want you to see how science is now approaching the truth of your divinity. And it's not about religion. It's about telling us the deep truths of our existence. We don't know where we came from. We don't know exactly how we've come to be as we are. But the new discoveries in DNA science are telling us the old story is no longer true. And that's the pushback. That's the pushback. There are many, many scientists. I have friends in academia. Well, we're friends until we have this conversation. then we don't talk for a couple of months. Because, and I've asked them, I have friends, anthropologists, psychologists, biologists. I'll say, why can't you share these new discoveries with your students, with the young people? Think about this. We've got an entire generation of young people. They are now perched. They are poised to dedicate their lives to answering the deep questions and the great mysteries of our existence. And our academia is requiring them to find those answers within a box of a predetermined story that science now tells us is not true. So I've asked my college professor friends, I said, why can't, I'm not saying don't share the old story, share Darwin's discoveries. We all grew up with it. Share those discoveries and share the new discoveries as well. And let your students see where the evidence leads. So there's a huge difference between taking all of the discoveries made with the best science of the modern world and forcing those discoveries into a predetermined story. It's like putting a square peg in a round hole. If you pound hard enough, it'll fit, but it's never a good fit. There's a huge difference between doing that and allowing the new discoveries to lead to whatever story they're going to tell. Can you see that difference? Can you feel that difference? And our academia right now, and corporations and religions, they have lobbyists that are pushing back against the discoveries that I'm going to share with you. Do I have your permission? Can I share with you some discoveries? Yeah. So I was going to just do a verbal talk. And what I found to really, you are, Stanford is a sophisticated audience and a very educated audience. And I know that everyone in here is at a different level of that sophistication. And so I think a few images I think are really good to help, especially when we get to the DNA. It doesn't have to be complicated. But when you see what has happened to make you who you are, I believe that you begin to even appreciate on a deeper level the extraordinary being that you are. And we have to say, without religion, I'm not saying this is religious, but there's something beyond evolution that is responsible for our existence, and who or whatever that is, we won't know until we honor our potential. So there's two ways of thinking about this. I'm with scientists all the time, and there's some scientists that say, we've got to find out where we came from before we know who we are and what our potential is, and you could spend another 100 years doing that. Another path is if we develop and embrace the deep potential that lives within us, to help us become the best people that we can be in every moment of our lives, to create the strongest families, the strongest communities, the best societies, and the most peaceful world. I personally believe that path will lead us to the answer of who we are. Because it is through that path, and as we embrace the subtle potential within our bodies to communicate with realms that have been relegated to mystical sciences in the past. But our own science now is telling us that we live in a world that is much more than this three-dimensional world. How many of you have heard of the CERN Superconducting Supercollider? You don't know what? It is the largest device ever created by humankind. It is a series of circular tubes buried about 150 meters under the surface of the Earth. It's so big it spans the border between two nations. Part of it is in Geneva, Switzerland, part of it's in France. I was recently there, I did a talk there, I had the opportunity to be with some of the scientists. I had to cross the border to go to lunch. So I mean, that's how big this place is. And what they're doing are experiments recreating what they believe happened in the first few nanoseconds of creation, so that they can understand the laws of physics that we are living within today. And it is in those experiments now that they're finding what they thought happened is not what happened as well. So the battle that I'm talking about for what's called the standard model of creation, the standard model for humans, that battle is playing out. And it's playing out in advertising, it's playing out in the pharmaceutical industry, it's playing out in corporate well, I didn't want to get into that. I'm stopping myself. It's playing out in politics. I don't want to get into that. But where do you draw the line between the science that tells us who we are and what our potential is, and the policies that we are now living under that are based upon those understandings? That's why this is important. So, I'm going to tell you, I wasn't going to say this, but you were going to start, oh, you have to tell your joke. You want to tell your joke?
Well, wait until after you say what you...
So we'll do her joke. So my joke, I just want to say, some of you have never been with me before. I did a radio interview recently, and most interviews are pretty good. And some of you have heard me on radio or television. And they're usually pretty honoring. Every once in a while, we get what's called a hostile interview. and this was a hostile interview. I won't even say the name of the station, but it was in New York City. It was a commuter radio station. And it was for their commuter traffic. They're 2 hours ahead of us here in the Mountain States. So I was up at 6 a.m., happy to talk to people driving to work. And I wasn't prepared for the way that I was welcomed onto this program, because I wasn't. So there was no good morning, no kind introduction like you just did with me, nothing like it. The first thing that I hear, there's a click when they turn on the switchboard, it's a radio phone interview. And the announcer comes on and he says, "Braden, why can't you stick with one topic like everybody else?" And I thought he was kidding. And I said, "Excuse me?" And he said, "Man, you are all over the map." He said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "You talking about the magnetic fields of the Earth? You talking about human evolution? Or are you talking about the field that connects all things, or DNA, or ancient technology?" He says, "Why can't you just stick with one thing like everybody else? Make it easy for us. They're trying to interview you." And then I knew he was serious. And I said, "Yes, the books I've written, they cover a lot of ground. However, if you look closely, what you will find is every one of those books addresses one facet of our relationship to this world, to our reality. So in a very real sense, I have stayed with one topic. It's about us. It just happens to be a big topic." And he said, "Okay, let's go to station." And he never came back. So for those of you, it was a hostile interview. So for those of you that are not sure, because you've seen me talk about other things, I'm going to do something very specific in here today that may not fit with some other things that you've seen me talking about. However, it addresses what I feel is one of the most fundamental aspects of our relationship with the world. So do I have slides here? Well, when we unplugged it, there it is. Thank you. We had a hot plug to the because we're technological gurus. I think a lot of you know I was a musician. I still am, but long before I was ever an author. And I had to learn all kinds of tech stuff as a musician because I was my own roadie. And it comes in real handy when I go to do a gig like this because I can tell when something's working and when it's not. New discoveries. I am going to fly through some discoveries, and I'll spend a little bit more time on the DNA things that are going to lead us to a deeper understanding of the internal technology that empowers us in a way that no other form of life is empowered. You have the ability to do something that no other form of life has the ability to do, and that is to self-regulate your own biology on demand, consciously, when you choose. No other form of life can sit down in the moment in time and say, in this moment, I choose to create a stronger immune system. In this moment, I choose to awaken the longevity enzymes in my body. In this moment, I choose to access deep states of intuition. In this moment, I choose to create great resilience within me so that I can honor and serve the challenges that life has just brought to my doorstep, and much, much more. No other form of life, only you. And it's because of something mysterious that, and I'm in this with you, we're in this together, we're a family. It's something mysterious that happened to us 200,000 years ago that cannot be explained by modern science, and it is pitting the scientific community, members of the scientific community, against one another because they don't know what to do with the science that is now revealing what has happened. Are you intrigued? Yes. Yeah, me too. So let's take a look. First of all, what I want to say to you, discovery number, if you're taking notes, I just did these, I numbered these so you can do this really quickly. Discovery number one, I want to be very clear. I'm a geologist. Evolution is a fact. I am not denying evolution. Evolution is a fact. I've seen it in many forms of life. I've seen it in the fossil record for plants, animals, insects. Here's the problem. It's not for us. Evolution breaks down. The theory of evolution breaks down when it comes to us. That's okay.
The bad news for people who, the good news for people who believe in evolution is what you just said. Now tell them the bad news.
Well, when do you want them to laugh? So I want to be really clear about what I'm saying here, because in the past, this has been a binary conversation. It's either been, if it wasn't evolution, then it must be, and you fill in the blank, religion, God, all kinds of rules and dogma. The point is, this is the point, we don't know, and we will not know as a scientific community until we allow ourselves to follow the evidence, and that is not being allowed in academia. It's not being allowed to all the places, all the lobbyists, the pharmaceutical industry, the corporate interest, political interest, all of that. They don't want to reveal what it is I'm sharing with you right here. Evolution, the theory breaks down when it comes to us. So, when you were in school, I was in school in 1950s, 60s, early 70s. This is what I was taught. Many of you were right there with me. You were learning the same thing. But even the scientists know, if you look, do you see something interesting about the progression that you're seeing here between us as modern humans and those who we are told we've descended from? You see an anomaly on that? What is the anomaly? Well, look at this. Look how close that one is to that one is that one is that, and there's a space right there. The scientific community is saying we don't know what happened. So I'm just going to begin by saying this. We've never had the physical evidence. Since Charles Darwin introduced the theory of evolution in 1859, there has never been one shred of physical evidence to support that theory. Scientists know that. They show that on the charts. If you've ever seen the evolutionary tree of life that connects us to those other forms of life, they are generally broken or dashed lines because there's no physical evidence to support them. They're called inferred or speculative relationships. They are believed to exist. Scientists will simply tell you we have not looked in the right place to find them yet. After 150 years of the most sophisticated technology, the greatest sums of money, the most advanced universities, the greatest minds in the world, they say we have not found that evidence yet. We've known that. That's no secret what I'm saying to you right now. Here's what changed. Remember the movie Jurassic Park, where they were pulling the DNA from the fossilized remains of ancient forms of life? It used to be science fiction. It's not. We now can pull the DNA. We can extract DNA from ancient forms of life, primarily from the bone marrow is where it comes from. There's some right there. From the forms of life that are preserved well enough to do that. And once you have the DNA, you can compare their DNA to our modern DNA today. This is a game changer. And this is a relatively recent technology. It's still being evaluated, still being developed. Now that we can do this, what scientists know, I'm just going to give you one example, a quick one. This is from the very prestigious journal Nature, volume 404. This was published in the year 2000. When we compare our DNA to Neanderthal, for example. When I was in school, I was taught that I was descended from Neanderthal. They were my next closest ancestor. Now we know that's not true. I know you don't want to see the whole story, so the last sentence of the last paragraph of the conclusion of the peer-reviewed study, here's what it says, quote, when we compare Neanderthal DNA to ours, the results suggest that modern human was not, in fact, descended from Neanderthals. We didn't come from them. As a matter of fact, we shared the earth with them. Probably had Neanderthal boyfriends and girlfriends. I was at a Hay House event, I said that, the woman on the front row, she said, I still do. And the guy next to her was not laughing at all. And then I got to see this whole couple's workshop happen right in front of my eyes. So if you have your DNA analyzed, you know, Ancestry.com, 23andMe, many people say, well, I have, you know, Neanderthal DNA. Many of us do, because the interbreeding, we did not descend from them, we shared the earth with them, and now we know that is true. This is the evolutionary tree of life. Here's us in the upper left-hand corner. All of these fossilized remains that are represented are linked. This is from the Encyclopedia Britannica, but it comes from the Smithsonian. But they're all connected through that dash, that broken line. It is an inferred, even question marks, so you can see that. There's no physical evidence. So the DNA is showing us we did not come from Neanderthal. We didn't come from all of these other forms of life. That's the physical evidence has never been found. The DNA evidence is now showing us that. Discovery number 3, where did we come from? This is where it gets really interesting. What the DNA is showing us is that we are now what are called anatomically modern humans. It's abbreviated AMH, anatomically modern humans. We appeared on Earth 200,000 years ago. And scientists agree with that. There's no controversy there. So roughly, right around, if you Google this or whatever, yes, modern humans, anatomically modern humans, showed up on Earth 200,000 years before, BP is before present. Before present, so there's no argument there. What is interesting is that we haven't changed since we showed up. We've been here 200,000 years, and now that we can compare the DNA of ancient anatomically modern humans to us, we haven't changed. That's not Darwin's idea of evolution, and it actually violates one of the fundamental principles of evolution. There was a co-discoverer of evolution with Charles Darwin. His name was Alfred Wallace. He kind of got relegated to nowhere in history, in the history books. The corollary to Darwin's theory of evolution by natural selection was that nature never over-endows. What that means is that life will only develop very specific abilities when the demand or the need for those abilities demands that they have them for survival. So, moths in Europe will only develop the ability to change their pigment when the trees that they use for protection begin to change their pigment. Here's the problem. You and I showed up. We're over-endowed. We're an over-endowed species. We showed up with extraordinary potentials, light years beyond what we need for everyday existence, already developed. It did not develop slowly, gradually, over a long period of time. It was there the moment we showed up, and it hasn't changed. We still have it. If you compare anatomically modern humans, this is what we think they look like, to humans today, from all intents and purposes, you can't really tell the difference. Hey, I don't want to pick on my brother Brad because we were both born in Missouri. So I'll be very fair and I'll just say we haven't changed. Let's see, put that into a note. It's good to laugh because it helps to receive information. So think about that. You and I, we appeared on Earth 200,000 years ago with bodies just that we have. They have the same body proportion, the same brain, 50% larger than our nearest primate relatives, the same cranial capacity, the same extended neural network. We're going to get into this really quick. A very powerful extended neural network that gives you the ability to self-regulate your biology. So we haven't changed. The question is, where did we come from? Science is telling us what happened, and scientists, many of them, the older generation does not like the answer. The young scientists are saying, bring it on. My older friends now, most of them are either retired or retired. They're asking me when I'm going to retire. I can't wrap my mind around that. However, if I'm no longer an author, I'm going to go back to my music gig. I'm actually in the studio with a new CD right now. I'm going to go on the road. So what they're saying, my friends are saying, you know what? We're not going to even deal with these new discoveries. We're going to leave it for the new professors. We're going to teach what we've always taught because that's the way we've always done it. It's what's in the textbooks. It's what you grew up with. It's what I grew up with. And we're going to let this next generation of professors, they're going to deal with this issue. They're not even going to mess with it. That's where they are right now. These are high-level professors in big universities on the West Coast, state of California. I won't mention any names, but they're really well-known universities. They have campuses in Sacramento, and San Francisco, and Los Angeles. All right, so how did this happen? All right, this is the mind blower, and this is why I wanted to show you something today. Discovery number 4. There are a number of mysterious things that happen in our DNA. I cannot address all of them. I'm going to address one, and this is a big one. Your chromosome 2 is a mystery, all right? Your chromosome, first I want to show you why it's important. It has over 1,200 genes. Only one of those, TBR1 is the gene, only one is responsible for the larger brain. Almost 76% of your neocortex. Here's what that means. Everything you see in green is the neocortex. 76% of that is because of human chromosome number 2, all right? Our capacity, our unique human capacities, empathy, sympathy, compassion, self-regulation of our biology. It's all possible because of human chromosome number 2. Would you agree that's a pretty important chromosome? Yeah, we wouldn't be in here having this conversation if we didn't have it. Where did it come from? Here's the mind blower, right here.
This is the bad news.
This is it's only bad news if you're clinging to an old story. Or it could be really good news for some people. Where did it come from? This is peer-reviewed from the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. The volume is called Genetics. I know you don't want to read the whole thing. It's a little technical. I'm going to cut to the last sentence of the last paragraph of the conclusion. But first I have to tell you something. I've been with scientists all my life. I'm sorry, Mr. Thoreau. When scientists make a discovery and they're really proud and they want to claim credit for it, they will write and they will say, I discovered this. When they find something that's a little edgy or they might lose their job or their tenure at the university, they will generally get with other scientists and they'll say, well, this is what we found. Kind of spreading out the risk. With that in mind, the conclusion from this Proceeding of the National Academy of Sciences, where did human chromosome 2 come from? We conclude that human chromosome 2 is the relic of an ancient DNA fusion of 2 ancestral chromosomes. What this means is that there were 2 fully intact chromosomes that were fused, and I can't get into all this right now, I wish I could. They were fused in a way that cannot happen in nature. They were fused in a way that cannot be attributed to evolution. And after the fusion, it's not enough that they were fused. By the way, here it is. So you can see it right there. There's the fusion. Right there, that little pinch point is where it happened. You can actually see where it's fused. After the fusion happened, because they were two fully functional chromosomes, when the fusion happened, there was overlap and redundancy in the functions. Can you see where that would be? It's like, just imagine if two corporations that would never ever merge suddenly did, just off the top of your mind, something totally that would never happen, like Whole Foods and Amazon. I mean, what are the chances of that? It would never happen in a million years. But if it did happen, if it did, think about this. They both have their own shipping departments. They both have their own payroll departments, human resources. If they ever, well, they did. So when they merged, there was overlap and redundancy. What happened to those departments? You tell me. What happened? They merged, and where there was redundancy or conflict, what happened? They either changed the way that they worked, or they got rid of those departments, or they got rid of people within those departments. That's exactly what happened in your chromosome 2. When those chromosomes were merged, there was redundancy and overlap. There were genes that were added, genes that were removed, genes that were modified to stabilize your chromosome number 2. I made a little movie because some people are more right-brained. Two chromosomes come together, and there are genes that are added, there are genes taken away. This does not happen in nature. And it cannot happen in nature. And this is only one example. We also have a mystery of human chromosome number 7, all these other things going on. I'm not going to be able to address them all today. So, this has led science to what now is saying the timing, the fact that this happened. Just take a wild, psychic, intuitive Santa Fe Unity guess. When did this happen? Just take exactly 200,000 years ago when we appeared. We appeared 200,000 years ago. Chromosome 7 was modified 200,000 years ago so that we can have complex speech. I didn't get to that. Chromosome 2 was merged and modified 200,000 years ago so that we have self-regulation, sympathy, empathy, compassion. Exactly 200,000 years ago. The timing, the precision with which these things happened, and the end result, us, all suggest something beyond evolution. This has led science to what now is called forbidden territory. I love that. Forbidden territory. Because they have no mechanism to embrace this, because all of these suggest an intentionality or some kind of intervention. And as a scientist, I have to say to you, it appears that there is an intervention. We don't know who or what. We won't until we allow science to follow that path and find out. Now, the indigenous traditions of the world all have a story of who we are. It's not science, but there's a common theme. Whether I go into the Andes Mountains of Bolivia and Peru, or if I go into Tibet, or I go to India or Nepal, or when I'm with the Aborigines in Australia, or all through the Pueblos here in the desert Southwest, and over into Arizona and down into the native peoples of Florida, all of them say we're the product of an intervention. And it means different things to different people. It's not the product of an evolutionary process. It means that we are not necessarily the product of an accident of biology, a fluke mutation. That there is an intentionality. And if there is an intentionality, it implies a purpose. And that's what brings us here today. It implies that we have this extraordinary potential to fulfill some purpose. How do we, and I just want to do that, I put this in this morning after I got out of the shower, I was thinking about you guys. If you're not scientific and you're saying, well, you know, what are the chances that this could have happened? You know, I mean, what are the odds this could have happened? Sir Fred Hoyle, British astrophysicist, he says this beautifully. He said the odds of the DNA forming, of all this DNA happening by chance, randomly, it's the equivalent of a tornado. I'm so happy to be in an English language. I just tried this through a translator in Germany. It didn't work. So I get to say this to you in English. Because you all know what a tornado is. This is so awesome. The equivalent of a tornado sweeping through a junkyard, and when the tornado leaves behind, there is a Boeing 747, one of these in the debris. Now, we laugh. What are the odds that that is going to happen randomly when a tornado sweeps through? So, I mean, even what are the chances of wing? One wing are going to happen. It's not going to happen. That is how unlikely. I'll just tell you, if there's scientists in the room, here it is. Scientists tell us that when the odds of something occurring are 1 in 10 to the 400th, it's considered impossible. The odds of the DNA forming the way that it has formed are 1 in 10 to the 600th, which means it's more than impossible that this is a random event. You and I are the product of something so extraordinary. And our society has done its very best to create a story that leads us away from the extraordinary potential that lives within you, to become an extraordinary, even more extraordinary being in the presence of those who love you and look to you for guidance and inspiration to create the strongest possible families and communities and to transform nations. That is our potential. And that's the story that now is being lost. All right, in the battle. So the question, how do we awaken that extraordinary potential? I could go on more and more, and I could show you all kinds of discoveries, and I do that in longer programs. There is a book that used to be called Human by Design. The publisher changed the title to emphasize this aspect, so the title is now called The Science of Self-Empowerment. I prefer Human by Design title. I think it's a stronger title, but I understand where the publisher's coming from with this. I just want you to know. So if you see the book, The Science of Self-Empowerment, it's exactly the same book as Human by Design. All right? How do we awaken this potential? Discovery number 5. Some of you know this, and I know that you talk about this every week, maybe not the science. In this room, 1991, scientists discovered 40,000 specialized cells in the human heart. They're called sensory neurites. They're like brain cells, but they're not in the brain, they're in the heart. This is published in the peer-reviewed journal Neurocardiology, 1994, Oxford University Press. 40,000 sensory neurites. Your heart has its own brain. This is important because those neurites think independently of your cranial brain. They learn, they remember, they feel, and they sense independently of your cranial brain. That means every experience you've ever had, all of your ecstasy and all of your trauma, you've experienced in your brain as well as in your heart. And when you go to heal those traumas, if you're not addressing that heart specifically, that healing may be incomplete. It can happen, but it may not be as complete as you would like for it to be. But this is what gives us this extraordinary potential. I'm just going to read this. This is from a peer-reviewed journal, the Journal of Alternative and Complementary Medicine, 2004. There's compelling evidence to suggest that the physical heart is coupled to a field of information that is not bound by the classical limits of time and space. This is where prayer comes in. When you communicate through your heart and not your mind, your brain, I've got until 22, right?
Sure.
Okay.
No,
I'm going really fast here. Because I did it for 40 minutes. So. No, I want to honor the protocol in my community here. So, I mean, we can do this all day. But this field of information is what has now been confirmed through the CERN experiments in Geneva. They know that field is out there. It's no longer a theory. It's there. We communicate with this field through the neurons in our heart and our brain. But here's the deal. Your brain is a polarity organ. In polarity, you'll always have a right and a wrong in your brain. Good and bad. Success, failure. Worthy, not worthy. And your ego will run those loops until you're crazy. This is the value of moving into the heart, because the heart is not a polarity organ. The heart generally has an intelligence, well, it does have an intelligence. It will generally answer you very, very quickly. When you query the heart, how do we go about doing that? Well, this is where your self-regulation from chromosome 2 comes in. You're the only form of life that can do this on demand. 2 separate organs, heart and the brain, they both have neurons, but they may be merged into one potent system. 2 organs, 1 system. We call it heart-brain harmony, or technically it's called heart-brain coherence. When we create a very, very specific effect, and Ritalin, I know, works with you all, those of you that come here every Sunday, when we create a very specific effect in the heart within the presence of a shift of awareness and focus, and you send 0.1 hertz from the heart to the brain, that is where the action is. That's a scientific term. That's where the action is. All right? So, what happens? Well, let me just show you. These are neurons in a living human brain. You've all seen these before. And look, can you see how they're all firing randomly? You're actually watching someone think right now. These are random. See, there's a random thought. How long is he going to talk? What am I going to do for lunch? Is it still raining? Oh, is it still raining? All right? These are random thoughts. What would happen if you could harness all of those neurons and you determine how they fire simultaneously? That's called coherence. I'm going to show you what it looks like. This is a brain that is going to fire over 90% of the neurons simultaneously. Watch what happens here. I'll set this into motion. I know the light's shining on, but watch right up here. Not there, not there, not there, right there. Watch what happens. Boom, look at that. Over 90% of those neurons are firing. That is coherence. That's coherence between the heart and the brain. This is a new technology. It's called the glass brain. It allows us to look at coherence within the human brain, and this is exactly what's happening. This is a living human brain, and you're actually seeing the scans of being able to create very specific kinds of coherence inside the human brain. How do we do this? This is going to bring it right on home to all of you that are with us every Sunday. And if you're not with us every Sunday, it's going to be very, very simple. The organization, the Institute of Heart Math, pioneering research organization, located in Northern California, exploring the power of the human heart in unconventional ways. We know the heart is a pump. It's much more than that. I'm not their employee. I am affiliated with them. I've worked with them since the year of their inception. And we tour together. If you're on their I'm on their webinars, and you'll see me advertise for them, and you'll see us. I'm speaking with some of them in Arizona in February, actually. They have refined techniques based on laboratory experience and indigenous experience into 3 very simple steps you can do in your living room. Please don't do this while you're driving or operating heavy machinery. That's a head. You want to be be in a safe place when you do this. 3 steps. I'll just tell you what they are, and then let's have this experience to celebrate our humanness and who or whatever is responsible for this extraordinary potential within us. I think the way to honor that is by embracing what we were given and developing it to the greatest potential, the greatest capacity to bring the greatest good and the greatest love to this beautiful, beautiful world that we live in, this beautiful nation that we are in right now. A lot of people are trying to tell us something different. I've been all over the world. This is a beautiful, beautiful country, and the whole world is pulling for America right now. It's going through a tough time. It's a good, good country, and good, good people in this country, and we all know that. Good people all over the world. I just want to say this to you. A lot of people, if you watch the media, it looks like the world is having problems. The only people having problems right now, people. We know how to care for one another. We know how to share resources, food, water, medicine. It's a handful of people in positions of power that are bumping chests. People of the world know how to love and care for one another. So I want you to know that. And the things we're talking about are so deeply embraced beyond the borders of America, sometimes even to a greater degree than it is here. So there's a movement embracing our humanness and the extraordinary potential that we have. And what we're about to do now is one way to celebrate that potential. When we harmonize the heart and the brain, it is like saying to your body, all systems go. All systems go. Because you are harmonizing all of the functionality of the body. You're optimizing your relationship to the magnetic field of the planet you live on. I didn't even get to talk to you about that, but I want you to know. That's where your healing begins. And when you harmonize the heart and the brain, you open a portal, a doorway to that field that is beyond the limits of physics as we know them. And that is where prayer comes in. It's what our ancestors always tried to tell us, is when we honor our bodies in this way, you open that doorway, that's where you ask the questions that no one else can answer. So let's go into this space today. And I'm going to invite you, once we arrive, we'll set the table for the experience. And then the feast that comes is our ability to be able to ask a question And I'm going to invite you, if it feels appropriate, I'm going to ask myself the same question. What is the greatest way that I can serve in this world on this day? You okay if we ask that question? And let's ask, and not with your brain, let's ask and see what our heart says, all right? I need my audio. I need my audio. If I'm ready here, so what we're going to do, I love this, let's do it. So we covered a lot of ground, and I know I spoke a lot of words. Thank you for the opportunity to share. I think it gives us a deeper experience once we understand where our ability to harmonize the heart and the brain really comes from. So I'm going to just talk you through 3 steps. I'm going to invite you, if you have not already, close your eyes and allow your awareness to move from your thinking mind to your feeling heart. I'm going to do the same. And if it helps to gently touch your heart center with a couple of fingers or an open palm, I'm going to invite you to do that right now. And here's the reason. It's because your awareness will always go to the place of your body where you feel that touch. So when you touch your heart center, you wonder, how do I focus in my heart? The sensation of the touch will draw your awareness automatically. Right there. It's the first step. The second step. I'm going to invite you to slow your breathing. Just a little bit slower than you would typically breathe. And the reason is because when you slow your breath, this is a language without words to your body. It's a language that your body understands. And with your breath slowing, you are saying to your body, I am safe. I am safe. And in this land, in this place, in this building, in this room with these people, I believe that you are safe. So that's that second step. I invite you to breathe a little slower than usual, maybe 5 seconds on the inhale with me. Let's do this together. Begin. And release. Inhale. And release. Let's feel that shift in your body. Inhale again. And release. If you can keep breathing just about that pace. It's the second step. The third step, inviting you to do something that no other form of life can do on demand. Inviting you to have a feeling, because you choose to have a feeling regardless of what the world is giving you to respond to. This is where you find your mastery. The ability to create a feeling in your heart because you choose to feel in your heart. What the scientists have found is that if you can feel one of the following 4 feelings, they will typically work for everyone. If you can feel gratitude for anything or anyone, appreciation for anything or anyone, care, compassion. Gratitude is very easy for me, and that's what I'm going to do today, because I am so grateful for the opportunity to be here with you and this family in this beautiful place that we call Santa Fe. So if you can feel that feeling, to the best of your ability, I'm inviting you to feel the feeling as if it's coming from the place that you touch over your heart center, as if you're breathing from the place of the touch. It's all coming from the heart. Let's do this together. Remember to breathe out the breath. With these 3 steps, you lay the foundation, you open the door to a vast array of potentials that you may launch from this state of being. Automatically, your immune system is being strengthened right now. Automatically, your longevity enzymes are being awakened right now after 3 minutes of what you're doing right now. So I'm going to invite you to take this opportunity to harmonize the heart and the brain. 2 organs become one system in open communication with a field that is not bound by time and space. And I invite you from the place that you're touching to ask the field the question. And begin the question with the words, my heart. My heart. How may I best serve my life and my world on this day? My heart. How may I best serve my life, my world on this day? And allow the answer to come to you. Don't chase the answer. Allow it to come from your heart. And the answer is typically brief, concise, maybe 1 or 2 words or a brief phrase. That answer is with you now, because your heart needs no introduction, no preamble, and never needs to justify the response. Anchor the answer. Anchor the answer with 1 more deep breath. Inhale. As you release that breath, I'm going to invite you to gently come back to this room, get a present in your eyes. How many have never done that before? Thank you for your honesty. Some have only done it halfway because your hand only went like this. How many received an answer from your heart about how you can serve today? Did anyone hear something that was unexpected? Okay, that's for you. I went over just a couple of minutes. I'm going to turn this back to our Unity staff. I appreciate the opportunity to share with you some of the science that's revealing the deep mysteries of who we are. And I personally believe the way to honor the gift of our lives, our families, our communities, our societies, and our time in this world is to honor the extraordinary potential that lives within each of us. Let's see where that leads. Let's see what the best world is that we can create with that. Thank you all so very much.